Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead, where once again we are working very hard to make sure that our food storage is up and running for these times that we live in. And one of the things that we want to be sure that we have is plenty of protein that we can use to make meals. Jim was at Costco today and found these two 10-pound tubes, logs of 90-10 ground beef. And they were a few cents less than the regular ground beef at Costco, which is between $1 and $2 less than Hamburger in our local grocery stores. And so he brought us home 20 pounds of Hamburger. So that's a lot. Where's the beef? Here's the beef, and there's a lot of it. And so we're going to show you on this video how to preserve it two different ways. The first way is going to be we're going to can Hamburger. We're going to pressure can it. It is one of the easiest things you can do with pressure canning. Here is the recipe from the USDA with some water spots on it. You can see how short it is. It is just so easy. It gives some special, this is for meat, ground or chopped, bear, beef, lamb, pork, sausage, veal, and venison. It gives a couple of suggestions for some of those. We're just going to stick with beef, and we're going to do ground beef. You can pressure can it in balls like in meatballs. You can pressure can it in patties. We're just going to do regular ground beef. To do that, we need to pre-cook it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on.
It's on.
And let that heat up for a minute. We're also going to do a third thing. We're not going to show you how to do it. We're just going to check in on it. And that is some hamburger patties that we freeze-dried 5 years ago. And these were raw hamburgers, and they looked just like this in their package. And this is vacuum sealed. I'm going to re-vacuum seal these because this vacuum seal isn't broken, but it's getting a little flimsy there, so we're going to go ahead and redo this one. But I opened the other one and put it all right in here. And I have not been altogether happy with freeze-dried meat. I just want to be real upfront with you. Some people love it and do great with it. I'm not very happy with it. This has been in there for 5 years, so I'm particularly interested to cook one of these up and see how it does. It's quite spongy. This is supposed to be raw, but it is stuck together here, unlike if it were raw hamburger like this, I could just break it. I can, and then reshape it, but it wouldn't reshape because it's sort of, it's just sort of rigid. I can't exactly explain it, but we'll cook one of these up later. These have been rehydrating for an hour, exactly an hour. So once we get done with our first 10 pounds, then we will use the frying pan to fry up one of those. So here is what we are going to do. I'm just going to start cutting into this log. 90-10, that's pretty darn good. So we're going to break it into hamburger pieces, and we're going to cook them not until they are done. We are just going to cook them until they are browned on the outside. They can still be pink in the middle. They're going to cook, because we're doing these in pints, they're going to cook for another hour and 15 minutes, actually more than that. They will be processed for 75 minutes, plus there's also the heating up and cooling down, during which time they will also be hot. So we're just going to lightly fry these a little at a time. And then we're going to get them into these pint jars. Now, I'm choosing to use regular mouth. I don't like to can in regular mouth jars. I usually always use wide mouth. But I have a lot of these, and so I'm not going to not use these. So I have a bunch of clean regular mouth, and so that's what I'm going to use. So the reason that we want to cook this just a little bit is that we do not want it sticking together in a great big glob in the jar. So if we cook it and it's kind of in little pieces, pea-sized pieces, then it's not going to come together and form a barrier to heat transfer in the jar. It takes about a pound per pint, so we think we're going to have about 10 pints. Now, while that's going, I just want to tell you that we're going to be using my large Presto canner, my 23-quart canner. It's already out on the stove with the water in it. And here's the lid. I saved the lid in here because I wanted to let you know that I've already done the safety checks. I've checked the gasket underneath. It's all clean. I have looked through the vent where the steam escapes, and I can see daylight through it. So this is all good, ready to go. And then I have the second rack and the weight right here. So these things will need to go outside as we start the canner. So I'm going to move them off to the side for right now. Okay, this is pretty much done enough. It's crumbly enough, it's not going to stick together. And because it's 90-10, there's hardly any fat at all. But I am going to lift it out of the pan and put it in here. And we fill it up to a 1-inch headspace. And then we will be putting some beef broth in it. Okay, so there's one. So we're going to keep doing this, and we will bring you back to show you what the next step is after we get all of this meat to this point and in the jars. So before we dress our pints of hamburger, I just wanted to show you that I've put these hamburgers in the frying pan. And I can tell you that they do not look appetizing. Do you think, Jim?
Not at all.
Yeah. And the smell, it's not a bad meat smell at all. So they're not spoiled, but it's kind of a musty smell. It is not appetizing. But I'm going to go ahead and cook these. And it remains to be seen whether I'm going to take a bite. We'll see. Okay, back over here to our pints. Now, the first time I've ever canned a batch of 90-10, and I just assumed everybody knew what 90-10 meant, but maybe I'll explain it. It's 90% lean, 10% fat. So the three usual percentages are 90-10 for the best quality, 80-20, 70-30. And usually I have canned either 70-30 or 80-20, and I always get 10 pints for 10 pounds. I got 11 pints this time, which tells me that there's more meat per fat. Of course there is, and it filled up another pint jar, so that was just lucky. All right, what happens next is I have this beef broth, and we are going to fill it up to the 1-inch mark with the broth. Now there are some juices that some of these have already drained down into the bottom of the jar. Okay. These are not frying up like raw hamburger would, and these were freeze-dried raw. So this should be raw meat. It's pretty bouncy. And you know, if we're halfway starving because things have gone way south, maybe we would eat these. I don't know, but I'm just going to let them sit there for a minute while we finish this project. Okay, next is to do the debubbling and make sure we are at 1-inch headspace. So we have one wide mouth jar, because that's what I had in the house. Okay, wiping with a vinegar-soaked paper towel to cut the grease on the rim so that we'll have good sealing potential. All right, the water is simmering out in the canner, and I'm going to put the lids on and rings on, and we will meet you out there and get these in the canner.
Okay, this is what 5 of the jars look like inside the canner.
It's important to notice the water level. The water level comes up to just not quite half of the jars. It is important that the jars are never covered with the water, and especially you need to pay attention to that when you do a double layer. So now we're going to add the rack and add our second layer to the top. Okay, so we have 11 pints on 2 layers. So we're getting the lid on, turning the front so we can see the dial. I have my weight. I'm just going to stick it over here because it belongs over here, but we're not ready to put it there yet. We have to have a good steam release through that vent for a good 10 minutes once it comes up to a boil. So we're going to turn it up just a bit. And once the steam is just really blowing out pretty fast, we'll time it for 10 minutes. Then we'll put the weight on to trap the steam inside and the dial will start moving. Once it gets up to between 13 and 15 psi, pounds per square inch, then we will start our timer for 75 minutes. After that point, we will turn the heat off, let the canner cool down all the way so the pressure is down to 0, and we will remove them and take them in the house. So we'll come back periodically along that path. I had a couple of spoonfuls of the hamburger that we're canning from Costco left after I'd filled the jars, and so I just gave it to Jim in a little bowl. What did you think, honey?
I think it was really good stuff.
He said, oh, we're getting 90-10 from now on. It is really, really good hamburger. Now, that brings us to this. So I'm going to go ahead and brave a little taste of it. I know that it's not, oh man, holy cow, it doesn't even act like hamburger. It's very, very tough. The taste isn't too bad. It does taste like hamburger. But I would not use this like in a hamburger with on buns with lettuce and tomatoes. No, no, no. It's way too tough for that. What if I were going to use this? I think I would probably. Oh, you can just see how hard packed it is, and I would probably put it in little bits like this and try to use it for something. We used to have a dog Max. If he were still here, he would be getting these, but. I'm not going to do any more freeze-dried raw meats. I'm done with it. I have not had good luck with anything that I have tried in terms of meat. If you have, and you have a freeze dryer and you have done raw meats that have reconstituted and you've been able to work with them, put it in the comments so other people with freeze dryers will know. But for this household, we're not doing meat. I love my freeze dryer for so many other things, and I have other ways of doing meats, so I'm not going to waste money on doing meats in my freeze dryer. So let's get on with the second way that we are going to show you how to preserve hamburger. I'm going to clear the deck and we'll be back in a minute. Out on the porch, the canner is just doing great. The steam went for 10 minutes, then we put the weight on the vent, and it is up to what is it, Jim, now 14? 14. Jim's great at manipulating that temperature control, and he gets it right on the head at 14. So anywhere between 13 and 15 is great, and so we started the timer about 10 minutes ago, so we have a little ways to go on that. Meanwhile, for the first time, I've been struggling a little bit with vacuum sealing. I started off, as you can see, I took the club of meat and I put it into 1 pound segments. And the first thing that I thought was, oh, I'm starting to vacuum seal my meats now, and I'm just going to use one of our little handy dandy reusable bags. And it comes, I bought this hose, this fits right here. This plugs into my Weston. I turned it on, the hamburger was in here, and pretty soon blood was going down the hose. And so I had to turn it off really quickly because I didn't want it to go all the way and get into the motor. So that was a bust. So I reverted to thinking that, oh, well, I'll just use the edge sealer on the Weston. So I cut a lot of bags, 10, and sealed the bottom and went ahead and sealed the first package of meat, and blood got above the sealing line in between the two pieces right here. And so that didn't work either. Now that blood wasn't going anyplace, so I could have gone ahead and done it that way, because the blood would have just gone into a little canal kind of thing, but it wasn't headed toward the motor. So I could have done that and cleaned it up, but I just didn't want to do that when I have a redundancy system for vacuum sealing. So I pulled out our chamber vacuum. And so I'm using these bags that I did for the Weston. We don't have any of the Anova bags that are a perfect fit for these, but I've already done half of them, and I want to show you now how I'm doing it, because I finally figured out. And what Jim and I realized was, this is the first time I'm vacuum sealing Hamburger, because I thought, well, that's never happened before. I've never had blood issues before. And that is because I always did 1 pound packages in 1 quart Ziploc bags, never vacuum sealing, so duh. Anyway, we're doing vacuum sealing because it's better. So what I do is I have already labeled this Hamburger with the date, and I'm noting that it's 9010, and that was Jim's idea. So I open up the bag, and I take one of these, and you can see how bloody these are. And I'm not going to put the whole thing in there because I want to protect the top edge for sealing so that it doesn't get any of the fat on it. And so I'm just putting this in chunks. And then I wipe my hand. And then I hold this so that this is protected, and I just flatten the meat out. It does better if it's flat and not sticking up. And if I need to, I can make some more changes after it's sealed to flatten it out a little bit more. So this looks pretty good. This edge looks good. So I'm going to take it over here and we'll seal it. I was also interested to see if these other type of vacuum sealing bags would work that are intended for edge sealers. Would they work here? And they do beautifully. So it's clamped in place, and I'm going to close it. And what is going to happen is that right now it is pulling the air out of the entire chamber and out of the bag. And so it is pulling all of the air, so the whole thing is becoming a vacuum chamber. And then at the end, it is all of a sudden going to let the regular atmospheric pressure back in, and that is what collapses the bag around the food. And we will see that in just a moment. So it's sealing right now. And it's going to stop at 7, move down. When it gets to 2, you're going to hear psh. And that's where it let the atmospheric pressure back in, and the bag collapsed around the food. The bell dinged, and so we can now get it out. And here we have a beautifully vacuum sealed package of meat. Now, because I want these to be as standardized as possible, I just push it into the corners and then stack it right here. And once I get all of them done, then we will freeze these flat, and then we will put them in the freezer. So I'm just going to keep working on doing this. I'll show you one more, and then I'll do the rest off camera. I just used my kitchen scale to weigh out 1 pound of this meat. And of course, because it's 10 pounds, it turned out perfectly the right amount. So again, I'm using my hand to save the top so that it doesn't get oily. Pushing it down just a little bit so that it's flatter. Okay, so there's a little bit of blood right there. I'm just going to get a paper towel and get that blood. Okay, now we're clean. The rough side down, seems to hold better when I do that. And put it under the clamp. Push the clamp down. Make sure it's smooth across here where the seal will be. Whoops, I moved it. So I'm going to re-clamp it and close it. Okay, lift the clamp, squeeze it out to the corners. And a beautiful 1-pound package of hamburger. So I'm going to finish these off camera, and we'll be back after we've taken the hamburger out of the canner so that you can see everything together. Well, here we go. This has been a very busy and productive day in terms of these two ways that we are preserving ground beef. Now, I've done a little bit of math on this, and we would be able to, we had a little accident. I'm going to show you that in a minute, but if we had not lost a jar, then we would have had 21 units, 1-pound packages plus pints of beef that we could use for our recipes. And using that as a basis and dividing into the cost, and knowing that with recipes that we use ground beef for, very, very often we have at least 2 meals, sometimes 3 meals. When we make taco soup, we use 1 pint of this, and we have it for 3 days. So just sort of rounding off, what we have here is protein. The protein for meals for us is under $3 a meal, just for the protein part. And then the other things that we add, like rice and veggies and those types of things, are not very expensive at all. So between $3 and $3.50 per meal, because we have done all of our work up front. We got a pretty good buy on the hamburger, and we have taken the time to go ahead and preserve it. These will be going in the freezer. I'll freeze them flat, and then we'll stand them upright. Now, when I was removing the pints from the canner, this was the second one that I lifted up. Notice that this is the bottom of the jar. And so as I lifted it up, I moved it over to the basket that I bring them in with, and the bottom fell off. But it's perfectly preserved there. But now, are we going to take a chance with this? No, absolutely not. We have broken glass here. So I just want you to know that this sometimes happens, even with people who have been canning for a really long time and can by the rules. Things happen. The jar had a weak spot in it, or what got cracked or something, and this bottom just fell off during processing. And as a result, it made a big mess of the rest of these. They're all covered with oil, and because this one lost all of its liquid. That's the first thing I noticed when I pulled it up. I thought, did everything siphon out? And then when I picked it up, I heard the click as the bottom fell off. So that happens, and I'm not a bit worried about it. I think in my 60 years of canning, a jar breakage has happened to me maybe 3 times. No more than 3 times. So it's just something that happens. But this is great for us to have all of this now to add to our level 1 food storage and to help us in the coming days ahead. So I feel really good about this, and I hope that you try canning hamburger if you never have. We can use it in so many different recipes. And then to have these in 1-pound packages is so convenient. And so that is it for today. And we learned a lot about our freeze-dried meat after 5 years. So we'll be talking about that in an upcoming video, and I'll give you some more information on that as well. So thanks so much for being with us. Let us know what you think about this video, and we will see you very soon for more videos.